Welcome back to the Hockey Show, and today we are going to be talking about who I think is going to win Lord's Stanley Cup this year, as the best sporting event in history is just 2 weeks away from starting, or just about 2 weeks away from starting, and that is, of course, the NHL playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, and I decided, you know what, I haven't made a video in a long time, I want to start again, so why not start with something fun like this? And here we go. So if you're new, if you're back, if anything, like this video and subscribe while you're at it, because why the hell not? Let's jump into it, actually. So let's just start off in the Eastern Conference. So first up, I've made my prediction who I think is going to finish up in the wild card spots, and for me, I think Toronto is going to end up winning is going to beat Florida for winning the Atlantic Division, and I think it's Toronto has an easier schedule. They have a lot of, they play the Sabres, the Red Wings. They play some pretty bottom feeder teams, so a couple of good wins. And I think they could come out 50-50 on those, they play against Florida, I think, once or twice. And they win. I think they probably win one of those matchups. So I think they're going to get some of those points, and Florida's just not going to get as many as those easy points, easy picking. So Toronto gets it, and I think the Senators are going to finish up in the first wild card spot, so they match up. And for me, Ottawa versus Toronto, Battle of Ontario. I think this would be a really fun matchup. The Senators, a team that I don't think a lot of people would have imagined would have made it this year after how they've been so just not a playoff worthy team yet. But this year, there has been that spark and that fight, and with the additions they made and Olmark being in net, they've been able to squeak out some of those wins, and I think it isn't enough to beat Toronto, though. Toronto, this is their year to win the Atlantic, I think. This is their year where I feel like they put together a lot of things. The goaltending has been good and not in shambles like it usually is, even though people say, Samsonov was whatever. I just think this is the year Toronto, they get past that first round again. They give their fan base a little bit of hope. The Battle of Florida, Tampa versus the Panthers. I think Tampa has been such a great story. I did not expect them to do this good at all this year. But Florida, the defending champions, you can make fun of their additions all you want. They haven't been amazing with Seth Jones and Brad Marchand. They haven't done too much. But when they get into the playoffs, Seth Jones has been an absolute monster in the playoffs, especially against this team in Tampa Bay. So I think in this matchup, there's no way Florida comes out winner of the Battle of Florida once again. Then we move on, Capitals versus, I believe, Columbus is going to take that second wild card spot. Currently, I think they're 3 points out from the second spot, but they've got 70 games played, so 12 games left. I just think with the additions of Sean Monahan coming back and just the story that they've been on, this is their team of destiny This is their year to get that final stretch, that push to make it up for Johnny Gaudreau, and I think they make it in, but it's not going to be enough to beat the Washington Capitals. Even though when the Blue Jackets make it in the playoffs, they do amazing things. I just don't think they have. They're too young. They're maybe not too soft, but they just don't have that playoff experience. They're not a playoff team yet, and I just think the Capitals, they are a team of destiny this season, and I just think, simply put, Columbus cannot handle them. I know they were able to handle the Tampa Bay Lightning that year, but it's just a different team. Next, Hurricanes versus the Devils. I think this is going to be an easy slam dunk for the Hurricanes. I think the Devils have been on such a skid as of late. I just don't think they have what it takes to come out. The Hurricanes might be my number one favorite team. If they're not number one, they're number two. This team has failed me so many times, and I'm always rooting for them, and I don't think they're going to come out with the Stanley Cup this season. And I'll make a whole video about them soon enough. But they do have what it takes to beat up the Devils. I don't think the Devils are worthy yet. I think there's something wrong with the Devils team it's gonna mess them up. I don't know what it is yet, but it's just not it. They can't handle the extreme unit that is the Hurricanes. They've beaten them in the past too. So I just think the Hurricanes, they wipe out the Devils. And then let's go down to the West. Okay, so in the West now, Winnipeg versus I think Minnesota Wild. As much as I think these two teams are both teams that have It's so hard because when Minnesota made it into the playoffs last time, not the last time, no, whatever, that year where they played against the Dallas Stars, was that last year? No, whatever. Um, they have such a fight in resiliency in them. And the Winnipeg Jets don't. And I am the hugest hater of the Winnipeg Jets for the playoffs. Not in the regular season, but this team in the playoffs has not shown up. But I think this is a year where they're going to make me think a little bit differently. And I think they do get past the Minnesota Wild. The Wild just... Gustafson's been amazing, but like just overall, it's really hard because they got a lot of good players too. It's a good matchup. I think this is gonna be a good gritty fight up, like a lot of skill, but a lot of grittiness. Like it's gonna be the good series. I think. But I think Hellebuck has just been too good. And I think this is the year where they finally break through. They've been like the Jets getting in every year have been such a spoiler. I mean, against the Knights, against who was the one freaking team? Now I look like an idiot, but whatever. Every year they just get obliterated by whoever they're playing by in a good matchup, and I think this is the year the Jets do a little bit better. Dallas versus the Avalanche is a tough one. This is going to be a series. This might be the series of the playoffs, or at least the first round. Well, actually, there's a lot of them. Good hockey all around. But Dallas versus the Avs, I think the Avalanche added a lot of really, really good pieces, and the Dallas Stars did too. And with Mikko Rantanen versus the Avs would be huge. Heiskanen being gone though, if Miro Heiskanen is out no matter what for the first round, I don't think Jake Ottinger can withstand the Avalanche plus the additions of Nelson and Blackwood in the back of the net to cover up some of their mistakes. I don't think the Dallas Stars can break through that. Even though the Stars are so good. That's a tough one. Honestly, in my head, before I started this, I think my pick was going to be Dallas to make it to the end, but looking at this matchup here, I think it goes to the Avalanche. I think that's what I pick. Blues versus the Vegas Golden Knights. The Blues have been such a comeback story, but I just don't think they have what it takes. Vegas is a complete playoff team. And then the Kings versus the Oilers. Holy crap, this series again, every single year. But I think this is the year where everyone is pumping up the tires and thinks Edmonton, for some reason, is the Stanley Cup champions. And usually I pick Edmonton to beat the Kings' ass every single time. But this year, the Kings have been on a tear as of late. They look so good. And once again, it's kind of like the Winnipeg situation where it's like something's finally got to give. And I think this is the year where the Kings, like last year at McDavid did so much work. I just don't like that. Something just can't happen again, and I think the Kings knock them out. Second round of the playoffs, back to the East. Toronto versus Florida, not even a question. Florida moves on. Like it is just not happening. Toronto gets left behind every time. There's not a chance. Toronto. Capitals versus the Hurricanes. I think the Capitals have so much, and I think they've got a lot of fight in them. A lot of fight that the Hurricanes don't really have. I think the Capitals knock them out. I think they keep going, and Ovi gets pretty far in the playoffs. Second round, the West. Winnipeg steamrolled by the Avalanche. Not a question. Golden Knights versus the Kings would be a really good matchup, too. Once again, another just really gritty, really fight for that win playoff series. The Kings have been so good, but Jack Eichel and the Knights have been so good too. I think they move on. So the conference finals, Florida versus Washington. That's a really tough one. In my head, in this scenario, everything is paying off. I think Jones is a playoff beast. Ekblad comes back. I think he's got to come back by then. Yeah, he will be back by then. Ekblad will be back, so they've got such a good defensive squad back there. Someone's got to light up too. I think Reinhardt's been cold and Verhaeghe hasn't been amazing, but I think something's got to start showing up. That's just what always happens with every single team. I think in this scenario, I think what the Florida Panthers have, I think the Capitals have, and I think the Panthers are just a little bit better. I think they're a little bit better in a series where they need guys like Ovechkin to play hard. I just don't think they will be able to manage that fully. So I think the Florida Panthers move on. And in the West, Vegas versus Colorado, like a team of like superstar skill versus a team of just brutality. And I think in the playoffs, I think what's going to happen is the Avalanche play the Stars in a really hard series. I think the Avalanche play Winnipeg in a hard series. And I think Vegas has got an easier matchup against the Blues. I think it's going to be it's going to be a really good matchup, but is going to be a like 5-1 win over the Kings. I think the Avalanche are going to be beat up a little bit more. They're going to be softened a little bit more, a lot more tiresome, and I think the Golden Knights have what it takes to knock them down and take the last wind out of them. So it's going to be Vegas versus Florida, the rematch. I did not have this planned in my head before I started this, but the rematch, Florida versus Vegas. Wow. Wow. That would be such a good series, though. In this scenario, I think you got to look at, like, in my head, the team that wins the Stanley Cup has God. They have goaltending, offense, and defense. It's the team that is truly the best. Goaltending-wise, goes to Florida. You got to imagine Bobrovsky's still a legend, and I don't think, like, Adin Hill or whoever ends up in net by then, because Vegas always seems to have a guy that just, like, kind of whoever's hot, they put in net. I think Bobrovsky beats them. Offensively, it's got to go to Florida, right? Defensively, it goes to the Golden Knights. But I think with the two-way play that Florida's got up front, too, like, they just have the key to success. They've been there before. They've got the rematch against the Golden Knights where it happened last time. Jack Eichel has been an absolute beast. But I think with the additions, I think Florida is just, it's going to be the story. The 20s are going to be dominated by Florida. Tampa Bay, Florida Panthers. I think that's what's going to happen again. And I think it is going to be, I did not plan this beforehand, but I think the Stanley Cup champions is going to be once again the Florida Panthers. I think it all lines up, and I think it's going to be, once again, it's the team of destiny here again. Florida Panthers. Lock it in. Second Stanley Cup ever. And that is all I've got to say. So thank you for watching this. You made it this far. Please, I'm begging you, please subscribe. Please. And Too Sweet, hope you have an amazing day. And ta-ta for now.